There have always been absurd ideas and those who believe absurd ideas, and no amount of counter-evidence will make any difference. Absurd comes from the word out of tune, dull, irrational. Religion, political groups, subcultures continue to maintain and endorse many absurd ideas. And these freaking absurd ideas have become normal in our world today. And we want to take a look at that. This is going to be fun.
Would it be okay if I were to tell you that I am afraid someday? So I call you up and you call me down. Would it be okay?
Well, hello and welcome to the FreedHearts podcast. We're so glad you're here. If you're back, welcome back. If it's your first visit, hi, come on in. It's fun. It's safe in here. And it's really cool. Thanks for joining us either way. So, and again, don't forget to subscribe, follow, and share if you would on social media. And if you can support us, that'd be great. And please check out our resources at freedhearts.org, especially our beloved adventures. And what we're doing here with this episode is we're sharing part of something that Susan shared in the beloved adventure, a 21-day journey beyond dysfunction. So if you like this episode, it might be really good to check out the rest of that. Again, this is part of the 21-day journey beyond dysfunction. It was so good in there that we thought, you know what, we got to share this as a podcast as well. This topic of, are we normalizing the absurd? Because things have happened in the world, in our homes, close to home.
You didn't say your name.
Oh, I didn't. Oh my gosh, I didn't. So people have no idea who we are.
They have no idea who we are. Even if they listen 100 times, they have no idea.
My name's Robert Cottrell, and I'm here with
Susan Cottrell.
Oh, thanks for catching that.
Yeah, sure.
Oh,
all right.
Thanks. I've been thrown off my game there. Not that I have game, but anyway, things have happened in the world, in our homes, close to home, somewhere else in the world that, in days past would make us go, what the no way that happened. Are you kidding me? Are you serious? But now it's like, oh, yeah, no shock, no surprise. Absurd things have become normal. Now, how does that impact our life, and what can we do about it?
Okay, so I'm going to share a story. There's an idea out there, and it's a real belief that the moon landing was faked. Neil deGrasse Tyson, whom I love, the superb astrophysicist, has a video about it. It's called, "Was the Moon Landing Faked?" Here's what he said. Have you really thought about what it would take to fake a moon landing? Because the rocket did launch. We all saw the rocket launch. So there's hardware there. There are office buildings of blueprints for the design of the Saturn IV rocket, hundreds of engineering hours that went behind this, and the records of those designs. If you wanted to fake a moon landing, you would have to fake all these documents. And it just seems to me, it's way easier just to go to the moon. Has anyone considered that? Just go to the moon. That's easier than faking all this. So no, we went to the moon. And I love that because a fake moon landing is an absurd idea somebody came up with somewhere, but millions of people believe it. As many as 6% of Americans believe that.
Wow.
Polls show.
Wow.
Isn't that in itself is absurd?
Does that mean we've just lost 6% of our audience?
I don't think it's our audience that doesn't believe it.
There have always been absurd ideas, and there have always been those who believe absurd ideas, and no amount of counter-evidence will make any difference. Absurd actually comes from the word for out of tune, dull, irrational. Now, religion and political groups, subcultures continue to maintain and endorse absurd ideas, many of them. So let's take a look at just a few of those absurd ideas that the culture, and especially the non-affirming box church, believes and keeps on rolling along.
Well, it's absurd to believe that LGBTQ people would choose a life of condemnation and judgment instead of changing if they could. This thing that has made them a pariah in their communities and families. I'm not saying you wish you weren't gay or you wish you weren't trans. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that you wouldn't choose that to make yourself a pariah in your family and your communities, make yourself at risk and the butt of scorn and hostility. No one would.
It's absurd to believe that the religious person's job is to muck around fixing other people in areas where they have no expertise.
Yeah.
Like sexuality and gender.
It's absurd to just spout an opinion on something you don't know anything about and expect that to be like the truth.
Yeah. It's absurd to believe that it's their job to fix others in any way instead of expanding their own ability to love and accept people. These are things that have been normalized, but it's absurd, and it should be absurd. And these things should make us go, what the... But they don't sometimes, but they should. So we're going to continue with more absurd things. What else you got?
It's absurd to blame earthquakes and tornadoes and monsoons and disease on the LGBTQ community, which some leaders have done. Seriously, it's absurd to continue to push ideas on the internet that are provably false, but they feel safer than actual thinking. I know.
That's true. It's absurd to continue to trust in leaders who have broken trust, who have a vested interest in people believing in them instead of rethinking what they're telling you. And there's so many things that over the past several years or so were just normal. There was normal etiquette or normal ways of doing things in government and in certain offices of government and between two people. And we've normalized not only the absurd, but we've normalized the anger and we've normalized the polarization and all those kind of things. And I want them to be absurd again. I want those things to be like, well, of course that's wrong. Of course that's not right. Of course you should do this. So anyway, and to keep the list going here, it's absurd to outsource your intelligence to people in power who are glad to do your thinking for you.
Yeah.
And a woman actually
said to me, my husband is so smart, I don't even have to think. Man, that'll send some chills down your spine, I tell you what.
Oh, my goodness.
And it's absurd to believe that demons are everywhere, just waiting to get you. And that if anyone says anything that goes against what you already believe, then it must be a demon. Like if you say to them, why don't you read this book? It will express what I'm trying to tell you about me. And they'll say, well, that's just the enemy. Don't let the devil get a foothold.
Oh, gosh.
So how will you learn anything new ever? And apparently their devil is stronger than their all-powerful God they say they believe in. That's absurd. They look at happy, vibrant people who don't judge or condemn and believe that they must be the devil, instead of considering that they could be wrong.
Well, hey, by the way, you know what happens when you don't pay your exorcist?
What?
You get repossessed. I'm here every week.
You're here every day.
Wow. You didn't sound very happy about that.
I am totally happy about that.
And that last absurd one too is like, that's such a pat, absurd answer.
Yes.
Instead of just opening your box and learning more. It's just a ridiculous.
You're thinking, so this person standing in front of you, me, you won't listen to, but the devil is who you think this all comes from. It's just absurd.
Yeah, and that's along the same lines. Demons. Yeah, the Bible is clear. Well, God said it, I didn't. All those kind of things are really just, I want to avoid the conversation. So I'm going to pull out something that's totally absurd.
I'm right, and I'm not going to rethink it. Yeah. So there we are.
So back to my jokes. Another. All right, so you got anything else?
I also want to tell you that I believe that hell is absurd. If that is not immediately evident to you, please take a look at my video series on YouTube about it.
Yeah, there's a whole video series, and just search YouTube for FreedHearts, or there's a link to the YouTube channel on our website, and there's a whole 7-part series on this where you go into great detail on what the Bible does and doesn't say about this, all this kind of stuff about whether or not hell is real.
Yeah.
That's a big question.
It's a big question for people. And so many people write me that are terrified. And the belief has caused so much harm we can't even imagine, and damage in just immeasurable ways.
Yeah. And
it's so much that I'm writing a a book and a 21-day adventure about it
Yeah.
because it's huge that people are so terrified of eternal torment.
That's an absurd thing
Yes.
that we have normalized. Or
Yes.
It's been normalized.
It's not true.
And it's absurd to insist that everyone around you is wrong, but you can't possibly be wrong. We have some ex-friends, we have family members who this is what they, well, you know, all of you are wrong. I can't be wrong.
Right. Everybody's wrong but me. That's a weird psychological thing. Even the Queen of Hearts, who is sometimes believed as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast, would not believe these absurdities. We live in a world that has normalized the absurd.
Yeah.
Absurd ideas can just be repeated and repeated and repeated until you have a following.
And repeated and shared on. Now it's boy, oh boy.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what makes these fake moon landing conspiracies, various absurd ideas, so easy to give energy to is social media now.
Right.
And the algorithms that, you know, I mean, you all know this. I know you know this. You shopped on wherever you shopped on Walmart.com for a pair of shoes. I don't know anybody that shopped on Walmart.com for a pair of shoes, but you shop somewhere for a pair of shoes, Amazon, whatever, and the next day in your Facebook feed or your Instagram feed, those shoes pop up.
Yeah.
They're watching. And the same thing is true about you click or you follow or you go down a trail of a particular thought. So Facebook goes, you like that. So let's feed you more because we want you to stay on longer and click more. So all of a sudden, these absurd, what should be absurd ideas and thoughts
Is normalized.
are normalized.
Yeah. That's how we get radicalized.
Yeah. And they've become, I mean, they may seem kind of random, but they're not. And they have a reason to exist. It's a worldview that's being promoted, and someone is getting money and power from it. That's usually the case on these.
Yeah.
And that's usually what it always comes down to.
Yeah. And, you know, when I talk about this, it sounds extremely negative, but I'm saying this to help us, to give you permission to recognize the absurd when you see it.
That's why we're doing this episode,
Yeah.
is we want you to recognize the absurd when you see it.
Yeah. And there's so many wonderful things happening. Hearts are being freed. People are giving time and energy to doing great work. And that's a direction that we're moving to as a society. I have no doubt about that. And I have great hope for where we're all headed. But I'm naming this because I don't want you to think it's you. This is so important for your mental, physical, spiritual health. It's not you. When you look around and say, am I going crazy here? I'm saying, no, you're not.
Yeah. You know, we talked about gaslighting and one of the goals of gaslighting is to get you to think you've gone crazy.
Yeah.
That you're wrong, that you've gone nuts. And that's the same thing that happens with some of these things. And again, it's not you. You're not going crazy. You're not.
And I always think of that quote, that it's no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society.
You say that again?
It's no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society.
Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah, it's powerful. And, you know, we're going for health here. And I want you to have health and well-being.
You know, I think the balance here, as you said, is to recognize and name the absurdity, the dysfunction around you when you see it.
Yeah.
So you know it's not you. And to know beyond a doubt that good things are happening, that tons of people every day are doing good work in the world. There's a meme we said this, we know how this ultimately ends. Love wins.
Yeah.
You know, love is the only sustainable way forward.
Yeah.
Every day, folks are doing good work in the world.
And life is constantly regenerating.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah. And you're not alone. I mean, you're not alone in this desire you have in your heart to improve the world that we live in, you know?
Yeah. Trust your heart to know that if you think something is absurd, it likely is.
Yeah. And this is part, by the way, this is part again of the 21-day journey beyond dysfunction. So there's a lot to say. This is part of that dysfunction out there in society and even in families and our churches and the world that course helps you get beyond. So like you just said, you know, trust your heart to know that when you think something is just freaking absurd, it likely is.
Yeah, we want to resuscitate your ability to trust your heart.
Yeah. If that doesn't sit well with your heart, with your spirit, you can trust and follow and believe that. You know this. You've heard us say it before. You're all good. Trust your heart. You can follow your heart. And if something feels absurd, it probably is.
Yeah.
We love you.
We love you, and you are beloved.
Bye.
Would it be okay if I were to tell you that I am afraid someday? So I call you up and you call me down. Would it be okay?
You've been listening to the FreedHearts podcast. We have extensive resources and vibrant community for you at www.freedhearts.org. Just come say hello. And if you have questions or issues or comments about the podcast, things you'd like us to talk about, reach out to us at podcast@freedhearts.org. The music is provided by Hannah Cottrell, our daughter, the Grammy-nominated Saint Sinner, and you can find out more about her at heysaintsinner.com. Please share this, subscribe, and follow on your favorite platform, and thanks for listening.